Hi, I'm Mark David, and the next few minutes I'll tell you about the absolute ABCs of an interesting and fun nutrition program called Carb Backloading by John Keefer. But first, a word of caution. I highly suggest you pick up a copy of this program yourself and not take anybody else's word for it except the author, including what you hear in this presentation. I found so much misquotation and misinformation, it's absurd. Be careful, be informed, do your homework, and be skeptical, but have fun. So let's go. Forget what you heard about carb backloading. It's not a junk food diet or an excuse to eat like crap. Going to McDonald's and buying a cheap hamburger and a large soda is not carb backloading. It's just poor eating. This is not a fasting protocol. Not eating for hours until you are lightheaded and dizzy is not carb backloading. If you are 20% body fat or higher, this may not be the best protocol for you. You might like the Carb Night solution by the same author. Many mistakenly believe carb backloading is dependent on your workout schedule. It's true, the ideal times are early evenings. Other studies have pointed to this. But regardless of your workout schedule, you can reap the benefits with a few adjustments to the protocol, which is clearly outlined in the book. Most people who are naysayers didn't bother to purchase the book and dissect any of the research articles listed in the references. They read the sales page, laugh at the concept which conflicts with their advice, probably scares them, and hope you are too lazy to research this beyond their expert opinions. Carb backloading basics. Carb backloading is simply shifting the majority of your calories to a later period in the day. Assuming in this example you will train in the afternoon, you eat lighter until training, and then the feast begins. There are times when you postpone breakfast, but even then you are drinking coffee with coconut oil, by the way it's yummy, and having some whey protein isolate. You do not go for hours without some type of food, although you will notice within a few days that your hunger is more in control than ever before. You backload your carbohydrates to prepare for tomorrow's training session. There's many tweaks to the program to address specific workout schedules and body composition desires. It's all about the carbs. Carbs make things grow, and that means both fat and muscle. If you have too few carbs, you don't get significant muscle gains. But if you have too many carbs, you can easily end up just gaining too much fat. Carb backloading uses high glycemic carbs at specific times to create an insulin spike to drive in protein for muscle growth and to refuel muscle glycogen. Most of us have been told spiking insulin is a bad thing. For the average person who eats a high-carb breakfast upon waking, that's true. For us who follow carb backloading, it is not. Insulin, as you will learn, is just a turbocharged transport system. Used in the proper context, it has some amazing anabolic benefits. To minimize fat accumulation, you will want to utilize a smaller backloading window. This window can be 2 to 4 hours. It's almost impossible to gain fat an hour after you work out. Finding the carb sources that work for you is important because some will work better than others. For example, I respond better to Kellogg's Frosted Corn Flakes, Swedish Fish, Whole Foods mini cupcakes, and jelly beans than I do products made with wheat, such as pies or very rich chocolate donuts. My first meal after the post-workout shake is clean. For example, it might be chicken, jasmine rice, a baked potato with butter. My next meal will be more of those fun foods previously mentioned. You need to experiment to find which high glycemic carbs work best for you. You want to experiment with your carb backloading targets. When you go through the book, you will find your optimal carbohydrate target. You'll want to experiment with that target to obtain maximum results. For the most part, you can forget counting calories. All that matters is this program is your ideal and total carbohydrates, keeping in mind that high glycemic carbs are critical for insulin spikes. Observe and fine-tune. Take note of the carbs that work. Take note of the carbs that don't work. For a better part of 2 years, you may have heard that nutrient timing matters. Now all of a sudden you hear nutrient timing doesn't matter. The experts say funny things like, it doesn't matter when you eat carbs as long as you eat them, or have your carbs whenever you darn well please. That is coming from naysayers who haven't bothered to buy the book or read the research. Let me tell you, nutrient timing does matter. In order to make carb backloading work for you, takes notes, and adjusts as necessary. So here's some bonus tips on carb backloading. You're going to want to drink plenty of water. Roughly half your body weight in ounces is a good starting point. You're going to engage in glycogen-depleting training programs. Carb backloading is not ideal for endurance activities such as CrossFit training or running or PX90, Beachbody Abs, Insanity, and all those type of workouts. Limit your cardio if you're using density bulking. Use high-intensity interval training. You won't find any low-intensity steady-state cardio recommended in this book. Visually inspect daily. This means you will use the mirror as your guide to see if you need to eat more carbs or less carbs. Start with 50% of your carb target and move upward as necessary. Using insulin as a turbocharged transport. Carb backloading uses the concept of spiking your insulin at certain key points to drive in protein to help build muscles and carbohydrates to replenish your fuel. I would recommend a 10-day ultra-low carb preparatory phase, which is outlined in the book, to determine your optimal carb backloading target ratios, unless you are 10% body fat or under, in which case it's not recommended and you can skip this step. I want to thank you for watching this carb backloading presentation. Now, if you have any further questions on the program, and you should and you will, go over to bodybuildingsecretslive.com and search for, in the gain weight category, you're going to want to look for keywords such as carb backloading review, carb backloading meal plans, and my carb backloading results. Thank you. And if you have any questions, simply send an email to Mark, M-A-R-C, that's Mark with a C, at nobullbodybuilding.com.